Courageous Leadership with Virginia Prodan, training you to lead with courage.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Courageous Leadership with Virginia Prodan, each Wednesday and Saturday at 10 o'clock Central Time. I receive many questions from you all. Several of you said, I'm trying to understand God's next step. Or others ask, what is God doing? Yes, during unpredictable times, such as the one in which we find ourselves living, with the coronavirus controlling the news and even our lives, isolation, many businesses filing bankruptcy, with our government taking unprecedented measures, scary, and with our economy on the brink of great loss or depression, the situation in Afghanistan and the chaos around the world, the situation at our borders, yes, we try to understand what God is doing. In fact, many times we are trying to understand what God is doing, but in the same time, we try to control the situation on our own. But for many of us, even if we don't understand, for many of us as believers in Christ, there is, or it should be, the assurance or hope or the certainty that in the midst of everything, in great turmoil, God is in control and God reigns. Many people before us experienced uncertainty and trusted God. The book of Daniel describes a time that appeared to be very chaotic and unpredictable. Still, the book of Daniel sets the record straight for us. True, it appeared from a human perspective that God of Israel was helpless to stop the destruction of Jerusalem and powerless to save Israel from captivity, and maybe have appeared that the God of Israel was not good at all in human eyes. Nevertheless, Daniel's message was and is very clear. God is always in absolute control. There is no circumstances, situations, or crisis outside of God's power, control, or rule. And Daniel understood that and lived a significant and successful life even under those uncertain times. And he encouraged us with important lessons regarding the sovereignty of God, that we have to believe, act on God's directions no matter the cost, and rest in God to bring the good results. Like Daniel, we can learn those lessons and apply them. And today I'm going to share with you how you and I can live a life of significance and success in the midst of uncertainty. Yes, it is possible. If you need more training or help or coaching after my presentation, please go to virginiaprodanbooks.com, Freedom Coaching, and tell us there what your needs are, and we are here to help you. We love to help you step by step. Okay, let's go back to Daniel. Daniel lived a significant and successful life even under uncertain times. And I learned from the book and from his lives there are precious lessons regarding the sovereignty of God that we need to believe, apply God's direction, act on it, and rest on God. Those lessons, I hope, will comfort you in this unpredictable time, that you will help you to live a life of significance and success, and moreover, will help you see that God will grant you security and encourage you to live in complete confidence in the Lord, who is working all things for the good of his people and for his glory. And here are those lessons. Number one, take a pen and pencil and write down: God's sovereignty covers all human governments. In a time in which we might doubt the government's handling of current situations, circumstances, we must remember that the Lord himself, God, has placed those leaders over us, and that God oversees each and every one of them and their decisions. He might not agree with them, but God is just, and they will be accountable to God even when they refuse to be accountable to us. God is just. God's sovereignty includes each and every leader of government, no exception. In those days of Daniel, when kings were defeated, their hands were cut off as a symbol of total defeat. And the fallen king could not longer wield his scepter. That was a symbol of total defeat. Still, Daniel, strong and courageous, clearly told the rulers of Babylon that even as their earthly king was defeated, his God has not been defeated. God's hand was still active, so much so that God's hands determined Belshazzar and Darius' beginning kingdom. Read in Daniel 5:30-31. God's sovereignty covers all the leaders of government, no matter how righteous or evil they might be or they might look to us. I live under a cruel dictator in socialist Romania who declared himself a god and required us to worship him alone and refuse to let us go to church. As an attorney, I dared to take the dictator Ceausescu to court and force him to respect our human and religious rights, and I exposed him to the world. For that very reason, I became the target of the cruel dictator and his socialist regime, daily arrested, tortured, beaten, held under house arrest, and threatened by his Securitate at point gun to be killed. I should be dead, but God had other plans. The dictator is dead, and I'm alive. You can read more in my memoir, Saving My Assassin, published by Tyndale House Publisher, and you can even buy directly from us a signed copy of my memoir at virginiaprodanbooks.com. You see, in God's hand, the power, the balance of power had shifted. The dictator who had an army to protect him and kill us, money, power, it's dead and I'm alive. God was and is in control. The same is today. Any government or power is still in God's hands. Your life, your family, or your business is in God's hands, in God's protection and provision, if you believe in him, if you trust him. Number two, recognize God's sovereignty overrules all evil plans. Let's take Daniel's example. He was about to be promoted as prime minister over all the land. But you see, jealous commissioners and satraps wanted to destroy Daniel. and they built an evil scheme. Are you like Daniel, targeted by your competitors or your enemies in what you do for God and people around you? Be encouraged and keep doing God's plan in your life or your business. Ask yourself, was this evil scheme in Daniel's life out of God's control? No. Could this evil plan prevent God's purposes for Daniel? No. Those are the very questions we are asking today, and the answer on all of them is no. Be encouraged. Live like Daniel, a life of significance and success, as nothing can stay the sovereign hand of God. You are in God's hands. God is the ultimate voice, has final and complete authority over everything and everyone, including evil. Be confident on that. Nothing can frustrate the plans of God for you too, in your family, life, or your business. Read Psalm 21:30, and every time a doubt comes, go back to Proverbs 21:30. Number 3, God's sovereignty is magnified through your obedience. This is why it's important for you to be obedient. Daniel knew that the document which forbade prayer had been signed. Reading Daniel 6:10. He understood the consequences of disobedience of the king's decree. And Daniel remained faithful in his devotion to God. He didn't cave to pressure, compromise, or fear. There was no worry or doubt in Daniel. Instead, he entered his house. Now, in his roof chamber, he had windows open towards Jerusalem. And he continued kneeling on his knees 3 times a day, praying and giving thanks before his God as he had been doing previously. Read in Daniel 6:10. Friends, it is one thing to say you believe in the sovereignty of God. It is another thing to live as if God is sovereign. Ask yourself, do you trust God with your life or your business or your family? Do you really? Daniel could have rationalized the situation and pray privately or pray at night, or at least he could have closed his windows. Not Daniel. No. Daniel continued to pray as he always had. Daniel's obedience was a powerful testimony, not only to the word, but also to his fellow Israelites, that God was in control, that he is worthy to be worshipped even during the uncertain times. The same is true today. God reigns, and we shall trust him even in the midst of confusion or uncertainty. Friends, the world, the unbelieving world is watching our reaction in this time of uncertainty and unpredictability. We have a great honor and opportunity to show the world that we trust God no matter the evil plans or the culture or whatever they want to create against us. We trust God because, number 4, God's sovereignty always brings glory to him and benefits to us, even when we don't see them right now. Once Daniel was freed, King Darius decreed glory to the God of Israel. An unbeliever acknowledged that Daniel's God is not dead, nor has been defeated. To the contrary, the king declared that God was alive and steadfast, actively bringing to pass his divine plan, even though Jerusalem and its temple lay in ruins. You see, King Darius proclaimed to the world that the one and only true and living God, our God, was eternal God. That Daniel's God is the only God able to deliver, rescue, and perform signs and wonders. Friends, God can do the same for us today. The world needs to see in us God's work and to proclaim Him too after they see that. Back to the question we started with. What is God's doing? What is His next step? The answer is in both questions the same. God's glory is being put on display, as was the ultimate purpose for Daniel, and it will be in your life and in my life. I hope those lessons encourage you that, yes, we can live a significant and successful life, even under uncertain times, just like Daniel. Those lessons, when implemented correctly, will change your life, transform you, and equip you to live a significant and successful life, even under uncertain times. They have a benefit. If you need more coaching or you want to buy a signed copy of my memoir directly from us, go to virginiaprodanbooks.com. It will show you how I live and I am living for Christ even under uncertain time. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to show you how to do step by step. Until our next podcast, each Wednesday and Saturday at 10 o'clock, be blessed and keep in touch.
If you want to know more about Virginia Prodan, her coaching program, buy her book, Saving My Assassin, or invite Virginia to speak at your events, visit virginiaprodanbooks.com.